just published a list of the 10 most expensive countries in the world to live in. There's a decent chance you're living in one of them if you're watching this. And today I'm going to tell you exactly how you can escape high cost of living and high taxes by using this information. So there's a brand new report out which lists the most expensive places in the world to live, and they rank the monthly cost of living in US dollar terms, so it's even across the entire world. I'm going to share that information with you, and I'm going to tell you why in this time of record high inflation you should be concerned about this, and this information could possibly motivate you to go where you're treated best. Find somewhere else to go, or at least get moving in that direction. If it's your first time here, my name is Andrew Henderson. I'm the founder of Nomad Capitalist. We're a boutique consulting firm that helps 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally reduce their taxes, diversify and protect their assets, and increase their freedom through optionality like second passports and having other places where they can live. We also host the biggest and best offshore conference called Nomad Capitalist Live, open to all. And let's just dive into the top 10 countries. And so the most expensive place to live, monthly cost of living, Monaco, $3,743. Now, I would like to know how someone can actually live the way you would normally live in Monaco for $3,743. That's essentially the same in euros right now, as the euro is at a 20-year low, which means any of these places in Europe, if you're holding dollars, are going to be cheaper, but it is still expensive. The last time I was in Monaco, and it has been a handful of years, I was paying 40 euros for a hamburger. And I'm sure with this runaway inflation, it is a lot more expensive. So I don't know how you're living for $37.43, but these are obviously averages. This is, you're just living kind of the regular lifestyle. But that still makes it dramatically higher than the number 2 place, which is also pretty expensive, Cayman Islands at $2,844, where I don't know that you could find a really nice house for under 10 million bucks that you would love to live in. Okay, maybe 5 million bucks. I know someone who's just sold a house for 5 million bucks, and I trust their house is fantastic. But you're talking about great expense. Cayman Islands, number 2 jurisdiction in the world for expense. Next up is one that you can perhaps relate to more, Switzerland, $2,497 to live there. Then Ireland, no doubt an expensive place. We've talked about it more recently. $2,316 to live there because salaries are some of the highest in the world these days. Liechtenstein, $2,306. I've spent a grand total of 1 day of my life in Liechtenstein. Not impressed by their pompous banks. Beautiful country. I think you'd probably want to press on after a couple days of $2,306 a month in Liechtenstein. Iceland, $2,207. By the way, don't get it. I love the people of Liechtenstein. Iceland, $2,207, also seems cheap. That's an expensive place. Singapore, $2,169. So again, I look at these numbers as they're relative in and of themselves, right? So I think you'd have a hard time living in Singapore on $2,169. I suppose if you lived there and you had the government subsidized housing and you were eating at hawker stalls all the time, sure, you could do that. And it's doable. Nothing wrong with that. Love me a good hawker stall. But the numbers, of course, are relative to each other. So we know that Singapore, 2169, is just barely more expensive than Luxembourg, 2163. So those are pretty equivalent. And I'll mention why that's important in a moment. So now we are basically out of the list, except for 2 more countries. Norway comes in at number 9, $2,074. And you may be watching in the United States, $1,951. And so, do you know anybody who's living in the US for $1,951? No, but again, if we just take the numbers as all being low, then you know you're living in the 10th most expensive country in the world. Now, here's my picture, right? You can live anywhere in the world you want these days. I don't care for many of you if you have a job, you can move anywhere you want in many cases. If you're self-employed, if you have a business, and that includes businesses where there's a factory or something, you have managers, you have people in place, you personally can live anywhere you want. I get it as a business owner, it is hard to walk away from your baby and trust it to other people. I have been doing that myself for years. Incrementally, it can be doable. And of course, if you're an investor, you can live anywhere. So really, a lot of people can live anywhere they want. And so the entire picture is obviously the cost of living in terms of what it costs to buy hamburgers, whether that's 40 euros or 50 euros in Monaco, or whether you're buying nasi lemak in the streets of Kuala Lumpur and it costs you 90 cents. But also is the tax picture. I'm looking at these countries, these jurisdictions. You have 4 of the top 10 that are tax friendly. Monaco tax-free for individuals, Cayman Islands tax-free, Switzerland has a lump sum program, Ireland for foreigners has tax incentives, and Singapore has a territorial tax system. So five of these countries are tax friendly. Ireland you might not include because the number of people taking advantage of those incentives is drastically lower than, let's say, in the UK, for example. Not a lot of people in Ireland taking advantage of those incentives, but they are there. And so you've got 5 of the top 10 where, listen, these are smaller countries, right? And I talk about how smaller countries, I think, are great places to go because they're more nimble, they're more agile, they can lower their taxes, they can be more welcoming to people. Sure, they cost more, but if you look at things in the global perspective, what if you could move to one of these countries and pay between 0 and somewhere in the single digits in tax? Would that be a better deal than living in the United States? Would you rather live in Switzerland? Let's say you make $5 million a year. Would you rather live in the United States and pay $2 million or maybe even more in all the taxes combined, or move to Switzerland and pay maybe $500,000 or potentially even less, depending on where you want to live? Or, hey, while we're at it, if you could get EU citizenship by descent in some country, if you could get Malta citizenship by making a donation, you as an EU citizen could then move to Switzerland and cut that tax rate lower. And so, hey, do you want to spend $200,000 in taxes? Is $2 million? Yeah, do you care that it costs $2,497, $2,500 versus $2,000 in the US? Do you care that it's 20% more expensive in Switzerland? Now, I think that there's certainly parts of Switzerland that are more than 20% more expensive than certain parts of the United States. I think living in Geneva is going to cost you a lot more than 20% more than living in Kansas City, Missouri. But again, if you look at things in the aggregate, if you are a 7 or 8 figure entrepreneur, if you're an investor, if you're an entrepreneur, whatever you are, if you can take the tax savings and you can still come out, even though the cost of living is a bit higher, that's why everybody has gone historically to Monaco. That's why people go to Switzerland, because you come out the other end. Now, if you look at a country in this list like the United States, where the taxes are high and they're going higher, and sure, some of the countries, Norway, Luxembourg, Iceland, Ireland if you're Irish and you're just living there and you have a job, hey, those are high tax places. But ask yourself, in this inflationary environment, Switzerland right now actually has some of the lowest inflation, but in this inflationary environment, your prices for everything are going up. You are living in an expensive place. You're paying a fortune in taxes. You're being squeezed every which way. So in that way, I ask you, are you any better off living in the United States than you would be just to the south in the Bahamas? $1,715. No income tax. Now again, if you're an American, you have to do certain planning legally to, depending on how you make your money, reduce your taxes, or potentially in some cases even eliminate them. So for Americans, you have a bit of a disadvantage, but you can still move overseas and dramatically reduce, if not eliminate, your taxes depending on the situation. By the way, add Puerto Rico as a U.S. territory to the list. If you're an American, you can certainly reduce your taxes there. But why not live in Dubai or somewhere in the UAE? $1,576. Yeah, you're not living in Dubai. By the way, you don't have to do everything flashy in Dubai. There's plenty of just normal life in Dubai. You can go to Abu Dhabi, you can go to other places in the UAE, but the UAE is 20% less than the United States, and you don't have the tax burden. Oh, and by the way, temperatures were lower than in Dubai, were lower than in parts of Texas recently, and the electrical grid in Dubai actually works, and you're not paying for it. Malta, if you want to be in the Mediterranean, $1,519. It's an EU country. If you want something a little bit less developed, but still nice, Antigua and Barbuda in the Caribbean, $1,465. Barbados, $1,258. Antigua has zero tax. Barbados has a non-dom program. Malta, similar. UAE, of course, no tax. Bahamas, no tax. Cyprus, tax incentives for foreigners, $1,266. EU, not as exciting perhaps, but quiet, calm place to live. Probably not much worse than where a lot of folks are living in some of the more expensive countries like the US. You want to live in the Gulf, nice weather, outside of Dubai. Bahrain, $1,165. You'll probably get bored, but hey, you can buy a property, get yourself a real estate visa, get yourself a golden visa. Panama, if you want to live in Central America. Panama City is nice. Boquete, $1,092. If you want to go down to a place where they speak English, it's a little bit more emerging in Eastern Europe. Serbia, $711. So you can live for 20, 30, 50, 60% less. And all these places that I mentioned have zero taxes or tax incentives for foreigners or some kind of exemption or a way to drastically reduce your taxes, potentially to zero or into the single digits, again, depending on how your business is structured. And this is not tax advice because everyone's business and everyone's investments are different. You have to look at that. Someone might want to live in a treaty jurisdiction. Someone might want to, there's many different things you should look at. And that's what we do here at Nomad Capitalist with our network of experts all around the world. And you can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. But if you want to reduce your costs and you're willing to move, you could move to a place, okay, if you were making $5 million a year, you may not want to move to Serbia. Although if personal freedom concerns you, it's been in a lot of people's minds recently. Places in that part of the world have been on people's minds because they do offer more personal freedom. But you've got the UAE, you've got the Bahamas, you've got Malta, you've got all these different countries on the list where you can pay less. If you live in the United States, every other country except for 9 are cheaper than yours. Inflation may be better in some of those. Taxes are a lot better. The culture may be better. The business opportunities may be better. And so you can go that direction, or you could say, hey, I will spend some more money. I'll go to the Cayman Islands, but you know what? Even though it's going to cost me a little bit more to live, I am going to make up for it in not paying 30, 40, 50+% in taxes. And so in that overall position, what are the most expensive countries in the world? The most expensive countries in the world are those that have the highest tax. I suppose you could go to Sudan and live for really, really, really cheap. Okay, no one's actually doing that, of course, but you could say, oh, theoretically, I'm going to go to Sudan. That's not the most expensive country because they have high taxes. But you look at countries where you would actually live that are Western countries where you're not really getting the value for your money. And the U.S. is a prime example. You don't get health care. You don't get anything for your money, right? They should either give you a bunch of free stuff or, even better, just drastically cut the taxes. But they waste so much money on stupid stuff. You pay the bill, they can't control inflation, and so you're living in one of the most expensive countries in the world and you're not getting anything for it. So my suggestion is, don't be in the middle. I had a great friend who gave me that advice many, many years ago. Don't be the guy driving the Honda Accord. Drive the Maserati, drive the Bentley, or get an old truck, right? Don't stay in the middle where you're in one of the most expensive places in the world. But okay, I'm in Oklahoma, so it's not that bad, but it's still worse than most places on earth. And I'm paying a fortune in taxes, and I don't get anything, and people are angry with me because I'm successful. Pick a direction. Go to Switzerland, go upscale, reduce your taxes that way, or go to anywhere else on earth, whether it's a Mediterranean island, whether it's a Caribbean island, whether it's in the Gulf region, whether it's in Central America, whether it's somewhere where you have more personal freedom, and choose. Don't be stuck in the middle. High cost of living, high tax, not a lot of value. Just don't do it. Use this data to figure out how you can go where you're treated best. And I don't care which way you go. I spend time in Serbia. I spend time in countries that are very affordable to live in, and you can build a great lifestyle there. You can live in luxury. You can spend a lot more than $700 a month to live in Serbia. And you can feel good about it because it's just so bloody affordable. Hey, all right, more wine. Or you can go up the food chain and, hey, listen, if you're making $5 or $10 million bucks, you can afford to live in Switzerland. You'll be fine. You might pinch yourself every once in a while, but you'll be fine. So pick which way you want to go and stop settling for the middle when it comes to the world's most expensive countries.